15. By the following day, Up and Up had completely recovered from his major operation, but it took me a little longer than that. The next week, he went to Wairika to see Nora. When he came back, he told me shyly that Nora had quit her job and had ordered the small garments and other things that she and the baby would need, picking them out from Montgomery Ward's catalog. I got out my copy of that indispensable volume and did a little ordering myself. 3 ridiculously small lamb's wool shirts I simply couldn't resist, and a 2-compartment rubber-lined shopping bag affair for Nora to hold wet and dry dyedies. When the package arrived via Tom in the mailbox at the foot of the trail, I puzzled over the 2 broad rubberized straps inside the bag, one at each side. Then suddenly it dawned on me that they were to hold 2 feeding bottles upright. I thought of Nora's beautifully rounded body, and I didn't believe those straps would be needed. I was quite sure she would be capable of nursing her baby. The next time Up and Up went to see Nora, he took my gifts with him. For 2 or 3 weeks it rained nearly every day. Not all day, but enough to keep the air delightfully cool and turn the trails to soft mud. One mid-afternoon of intermittent sunshine and showers, I sat snug and warm in the old rocking chair, pulled close to the stove, reading a magazine, Vicky asleep at my feet. Suddenly she raised her head, cocked one ear. I could hear nothing unusual, but she was often aware of sounds that were completely beyond my ears. A moment later she scrambled to her feet, made a rush to the front door, then looked back at me, whining. Giving her only half my attention, I rose and let her out. She shot through the door and made a rush up the trail leading to the diggings. Startled, I watched her. Then I saw something that scared me half out of my wits. A cougar, partly hidden by low brush less than 100 feet away. I knew instantly from the boy's description what the great tawny beast was. Vicky began to bark wildly, but slowed her advance, moving toward the fearsome animal 1 step at a time. The creature, 3 times her size, came out of the brush, turned to look at Vicky, its long tail swaying ominously from side to side. "Vicky!" I shouted. "Vicky, come here this instant!" She didn't so much as hesitate in her slow forward movement toward the big cat. The cougar bared its great teeth in a snarl and crouched. The big gun! Now was the moment when I must use it. Whirling, I sprang inside, grabbed the rifle, dragged it to the door. Using the last ounce of strength I could command, I raised it up to my shoulder, aimed it as best as I could at the cougar's head, but I was too late. At that instant, Vicky and the cougar sprang at each other. There was a wild scuffle, Vicky silent now that the battle had been joined, the cougar snarling viciously. If I shot now, I was as likely to kill Vicky as the cougar. But the beast would finish Vicky quickly, that I knew. Should I fire or not? The choice was a terrible one. I hesitated, my finger on the trigger, the barrel swinging as I kept it pointing at the struggling animals. In spite of the dragging weight of the infield, the cougar closed its jaws on Vicky's back and began to shake her. The beast's teeth must have slipped, for suddenly Vicky sailed through the air and landed some 20 feet away. I couldn't have aimed the rifle accurately to save my life, but at that moment the cougar's head came into line with the gun's sight. I pulled the trigger. The animal leapt and fell on its side. I've killed it. I've killed it, I exulted. But the cougar got slowly to its feet, swayed a moment, then wobbled weakly into the brush. Frantically, I called my little dog, and this time she obeyed me. Suddenly, the gun was so heavy I could hardly lift it into the doorstep, drag it into the cabin, lean it against the wall. Vicky came inside with me. I slammed the door shut. She was bleeding from half a dozen places. I washed her wounds with soap and water. She licked my hands while I did it, though it must have hurt her terribly. As soon as I had done all I could for her, I began to think about the cougar. Had I killed it? I thought it was very likely that I had. Surely the bullet had hit the brute's head. Vicky, brave little Vicky, had done her best to protect me. She lay at my feet trembling, whether from the shock of her battle with the cougar or the pain of her wounds I did not know. I shook a little myself, remembering the animal's snarling face. The hands of the clock pointed to 5. The boys would be along soon. I wanted very much to tell them what had happened, start them out before dark to hunt for the cougar. Soon I heard them coming. Stepping to the door, I called to them. They came in. Vicky did not run to them, but lay quietly. "Boys," I said, "I killed the cougar." They looked at me, disbelief in their eyes. "Well now," dear sir began mildly, "that's a right exciting statement. Where is it, dear madam?" "I don't know exactly. Up in the mountains somewhere. I don't think it could have gotten very far after I shot it." "Now, dear madam," Up and Up said mildly, "you're fooling. You couldn't kill a cougar with that little Ivor Johnson of yours. It's just ain't reasonable. Maybe you shot at a bobcat." "Are you sure you shot at any kind of varmint?" dear sir asked. "Maybe you just thought you heard an animal in the brush." "I didn't think anything of the kind," I declared indignantly. "And as for a bobcat, could a bobcat have done that to Vicky?" They went over and looked her closely over. They went over and looked closely at her. "No, I guess not," dear sir said. "But you still couldn't have killed a cougar, not with that little gun of yours." "I used the Enfield." "Now, dear madam, don't tell us you even lifted that gun, much less aimed." "Look at it." I pointed dramatically at the big rifle. Dear sir picked it up, broke it, put the gun back against the wall. "It's been fired, sure enough." "Now I guess you boys will believe me. What about you going to look for that cougar before dark?" "All right," Up and Up said. "We'll take the gun along just in case." They started up the trail. It wasn't more than 10 minutes until they were back, lugging the great limp brute between them. They threw the carcass on my doorstep and came in. "It's dead," Up and Up stated, quite unnecessarily. "And it's a female. You made yourself $60, dear madam." That startled me. I'd forgotten the bounty. The main thing about it all so far was that I had saved my Vicky's life. I said, looking down at the dead cougar. "But to collect, I'll have to send the hide as proof." "That's right, but you have no use for the hide." "Yes, I have. I'll make a nice rug to cover the floor by my bed." "Darned if it wouldn't," Up and Up exclaimed. "And I'm the fellow that can fix it for you, first class. You know that bear hide on the wall at Bent Pine? Well, I tanned that." "Did a good job of it, too," dear sir broke in. "Why don't you give that to dear madam? It's bigger, and you take the cougar hide." "My gosh!" Up and Up was disgusted. "That heavy, woolly bear hide on dear madam's floor, and nothing flat, it would be full of dirt and Dick Viggy's fleas. This cougar hide will make a fine rug. Let me fix it for you, dear madam." "I will, and thanks, Up and Up. I really need a rug now that winter is coming on. The floor is not only rough, it's cold, too. How long will it take you to get it ready?" "Oh, a few weeks, more or less," he replied vaguely. "I'll get the jalopy so we can haul the varmint up to Bent Pine. I'll skin it tonight." He went loping down the trail to the road. "You know," dear sir said, "I'll be surprised if we lose any more nannies. Very likely this is the brute that has been killing them. It's still hard to believe that you can aim and fire that big gun. Where you got the strength, I don't know. Of course it took courage, too, but I always knew you had that." His words of praise made my heart glow. Several days later, I went down to Bent Pine. There, stretched carefully and nailed securely to the outside of the cabin on the side sheltered from the rains, was my cougar skin. It was all of 5 feet long, a nice, generous bedside rug size. I was impatient to have it on my floor, warm and soft to my bare feet on cold mornings. But I couldn't get a promise out of Up and Up as to when it would be ready. "Takes time, dear madam, takes time," was all he would say. Days grew shorter, nights and mornings really chilly. When I got up the morning of the first day of October, I smelled frost even before I opened the kitchen window. And there it was, setting everything a-sparkle. I could see that the dogwood leaves had turned scarlet almost overnight. Would this be the end of the vegetable garden at Bent Pine? I hope not, for when the frost killed the plants, we would have to depend on canned vegetables, except when the boys went to Happy Camp and brought home what we could use before they spoiled. This was a good morning to build a rousing fire in the big old cook stove, hover around the kitchen, and do some chores I'd been putting off until there should be weather like this. After breakfast, I straightened up the cabin. Chore number 1 was doing my fingernails, which, as every well-regulated woman knows, should never be put off. But not being well-regulated as was a condition on which I prided myself, a condition I had come to Klamath Forest to attain, and my fingernails certainly showed it. I reached for the box containing my manicure set and lipstick, which I kept on top of the cupboard. Setting the lipstick to one side, I arranged the tweezers, orange sticks, file, nail polish remover, and nail polish at hand on the kitchen table. Then I grasped the file and began to work on thumb and nail number 1. Suddenly, the boys barged into my kitchen, set their lunch pails noisily on my table. "Top of the morning to you," bellowed Up and Up. "How's the world treating you this frosty morning?" "Fine, but tell me, how is it treating your vegetable garden?" "Not bad," Dear Sir answered. "It's in a protected place, you know. The tomatoes are probably done for, but I don't think anything else was damaged seriously. We can tell better when we get home tonight." "Well, you look at dear Madam," Up and Up marveled, "getting herself all prettied up. You expecting company from San Francisco?" "No, I don't expect to see anybody except you boys," I said, industrially filing away. "What you doing it for, then? Men," I thought. The question irritated me. "For fun. Just to pass the time, because I'm a silly old woman." "You don't need to get mad," Up and Up interrupted with spirit. "I was just trying to find out why women—" "Never do it," Dear Sir broke in. "There's no use, and it saves wear and tear not to. Dear Madam, we just dropped by to tell you that one of the nannies had a kid last night. Already it's jumping around lively as a cricket. We'll carry it up to see you next Sunday. It can't walk this far until it's a little older." "I'd love to see it." The boys picked up their lunch boxes and went on their way, leaving me in my warm, cozy kitchen and to the job of making my hands look as much like a lady's as possible. Soon every nail was beautifully rounded and a gleaming rosy red. Leaving the items of my manicure set to be put away later, a besetting sin of mine, leaving things at loose ends, I went outside into the crisp sunshine and proceeded to ruin all of my work by straightening up the early chrysanthemums, now blooming in profusion. By this time, all traces of frost were gone. That task finished, I nipped buds off the late-blooming varieties so they would give me larger blossoms about a month later. Vicky patted after me as I moved along the rows. Lunchtime came. I went inside, drank a glass of milk, munched a cracker, hurried back to my task. One thing led to another. As every flower enthusiast knows, all the work in a garden is never done. It must have been about 2 o'clock when I was startled to see Millicent Benning's curly top, under a trim navy blue hat, bobbing along the second terrace below me. I had never seen her wear a hat before, and this one even had a tiny white veil. In an instant, I took in the rest of her clothes. A navy blue suit, transparent white blouse, pearl earrings, and high-heeled, open-toed pumps. She was breathing fast, as if she had climbed the trail swiftly. "Oh, Mrs. Patterson," she called. "I've got such good news to tell you. I'm on my way to Eureka, and I can only stay about an hour. A friend is coming here to your place for me." "Let's go in the house and sit down so you can catch your breath," I said, genuinely glad to see her. We went inside, Vicky coming with us, and sat down in the bedroom. "Remind me, Millicent," I said, "before you go. I want you to see how well the chrysanthemums you gave me are blooming. They're in the backyard." But she wasn't thinking about chrysanthemums. She wasn't, at the moment anyway, even thinking of Emily Post. "Mrs. Patterson," she said, still breathless, "I'm going to be married." "Millicent, you don't mean it." "It couldn't be. This child—" "It's the truth. I've come to say goodbye to you and to Vicky. She's a sweet dog, aren't you, Vicky?" Vicky responded with ecstatic hand-lickings and much soulful rolling of the eyes. "But, dear child, isn't this awfully sudden?" I was still feeling the impact of her announcement, but for some reason tears filled my eyes. "It's not sudden at all, Mrs. Patterson," she bubbled on. "Danny and I have known each other for a whole month. He came up here to hunt deer when the season opened. He lives in San Francisco, and he's 21 years old, and he's 6 feet tall and has a good job in his father's hardware store. He wanted me to marry him when we'd only known each other a week, but we had to get my parents' consent because I'm only 16, and they wouldn't give it to us until a few days ago. But they like Danny and think he's all right." But you're so young." "Well, I suppose so, but I know a lot more about marriage than most girls my age." I sat there stupefied. This child, a mere baby to me, she was wildly happy. I was so afraid for her, but she had more to tell me. "I know you think I should wait," she went on, "but you don't understand how things are. I love Danny so much, and I just have to get away, far away, where I'll never hear my father and mother quarreling, saying terrible things to each other. I want to live like nice white people do, and I'm really white almost anyway. Danny says people in San Francisco aren't like folks here on the Klamath. They won't care whether I'm part Indian or not, and they won't need to know anyway. It's so sad. Has Danny told his parents? I felt a little faint and more than a little heartsick. Oh no, he hasn't told them. He wants them to see me first. I'm going to San Francisco tonight. A friend will meet me there and I'll stay at her home. Tomorrow Danny will take me to see his parents. He says he knows they'll love me. Then just as soon as we can get a license, we have to wait 3 days, we'll be married. Oh, I'm so happy. I don't think anyone could possibly be happier than I am. I'm going to make you a cup of chocolate, I said. You visit with Vicky while I get wood for the fire. I went out to the woodshed, found there was no kindling, and split a handful. When I came back into the kitchen, I saw that Millicent had been busy, like the child she actually was. Vicky sat on a chair, her front paws resting on the table. Millicent had seen the fingernail polish where I left it and had painted Vicky's toenails a brilliant red. My lipstick had also been put to use. Vicky's mouth was liberally smeared and her jowls flamed with color. "Isn't she pretty?" Millicent exclaimed. All thoughts of her coming marriage had gone from her mind, and she was completely engrossed in her little girl play. If Vicky was my doggie, I'd tie a red ribbon around her neck, she chattered on. Vicky drew her lips back in a doggish grin, showing her white teeth in pleasure at being the center of attention. I was more troubled than ever. As I started the fire and put milk onto heat, I thought I should at least try to dissuade Millicent, before it was too late, from the course she was embarking on. It seems to me, Millicent, I said, that since you know so many unpleasant things about marriage, you'd be afraid. Oh, no, she broke in, wide-eyed and smiling. You see, some marriages are made by the devil and some are made in heaven. Mine and Danny's will be made in heaven because we really love each other. I had no answer to that, at least none that made sense even to me. A few minutes later, as I poured the steaming chocolate into cups, my hand shook a little and my heart ached for her. I would make one more try, I thought resolutely. How can you be so sure you and Danny will be happy together? I asked. Serenely, she answered me. Because Emily Post says, faith, hope, and love will make any marriage a success. Danny and I have all of those. And she also says, the greatest of these is love, or something like that. And I know she's right. Danny thinks just as I do about it. I knew I had no argument that would stand up against this. I was beaten. I was going to lose my little friend to this stranger, this boy, who just happened to come hunting in the Klamath Forest and found this sweet young girl whose home was a troubled and unhappy one. There came a honking at the foot of my trail. Millicent jumped up, kissed me goodbye, and ran down to join her friend in the waiting car. Vicky pawed my skirt, trying to get my attention. She was most unhappy about her scarlet toenails, and so was I. If the boys came down from the mine and saw her like this, they'd never stop ribbing me. They'd believe, or pretend to believe, that I did it in a moment of complete idiocy. I scrubbed Vicky's face with soap and water, used polish remover to get the scarlet enamel off her toenails. But for days afterwards, Vicky's jowls were a faint but unmistakable blush. I never looked at her that I did not think sadly of little Millicent, and wonder if she had found love big and strong and hopeful enough to give her the happiness she longed for.